So good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. We're so glad to be here. Welcome to Barren Fruit's 8th annual Empowerment Week for Infertility. This is an important national week. It's an important celebration and an important opportunity for us to gather together. We know you've had some opportunities to hear from folks throughout this week, and we thank you for everybody who's planning to be a part of our events that are coming up. We'll be talking more about those as we go through. But today, just want to be so excited about our guest who is here with us, and we want to celebrate the opportunity to bring her story into focus on this evening. So very, very glad that we have the chance to be a part of this and that we have a chance to share other people's stories and not just our own. So I want to welcome our guest, and I want her to have a chance to introduce herself and her story. Angie, thank you so much for being here this evening. I am just getting to know you and know about you and know about your story. But what I know so far, and I'm excited to have you share tonight, is the incredible journey that you have been on. We often talk at Barren Fruit. I serve as the vice president of the board for Barren Fruit and have been working with our founder, Deanna, for a number of years. But we often talk about infertility warriors. We talk about how important it is for us to stay focused, prayed up, and lifting one another up. And your story does just that. You have taken some of the most difficult moments of your life and turned them not only into testimony, but you have turned them into your life's work and your mission. And so I want to ask you to share that with us today. Just let's start out by hearing just the very beginnings of your story and your connection, not only to Infertility Empowerment Week, but to the mission and work of standing in the gap for women who are dealing with issues of reproductive health and infertility.
Thank you for that. Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be here, and especially during this week. That means a lot to so many of us. I think back on when my journey began nearly a decade ago. There were no awareness weeks. There was no opportunity to feel the connection and build community. So when I think about my current work,
Mhm.
it's almost like ministering to the woman that I was 10 years ago and
Yeah.
what I needed and kind of standing in that gap. And like I said, my journey began nearly 10 years ago. Met my husband later in life, late 30s. We married, and like most happy couples, you think that everything's going to work out. Like we wanted a family, we were like maybe one or two kids. It's all going to happen for us. At 38, married and trying, and things were moving slow. And my gynecologist said, "We'll give it 6 months, and then we'll revisit this." And nothing happened in 6 months, and all the trying and the fun trying, and then started the testing, testing the infertility, testing AMH levels and all that. That was fairly normal. My ovarian reserve for my age, and went into an appointment to then do a testing of my tubes, and then realized that there was blockage in both my tubes. So I remember being at that appointment and thinking it was just a normal appointment to go into, and not needing my husband to be there and support me because everything's going to be fine. Like,
Mhm.
just keep
Mhm.
trying.
Right.
And then in that very uncomfortable procedure, which many of us who have experienced infertility have gone through, of the dye shooting up your tubes, or attempting to shoot up
Mhm.
mine at the time, and then the radiologist just saying, "We're going to stop now and you can meet me in the waiting room," and then just telling me, "Well, both your tubes are blocked, but you have a beautiful uterus, so you can always do IVF and just go around your tubes." So, hearing that
Mhm.
devastating news in an appointment alone, and I just remember sitting in the room and crying and calling my husband and stuck, like, what does this mean? Like, what happens now? And like many of us, then having to leave an appointment and go off to work.
Mhm.
So nothing stops when you're in the midst of infertility. Life has to
Said that.
continue. You have to show up.
Yes.
You're on your lunch break, you go to work and you try to figure it out. And
Mhm.
just at that point, having to process the fact that, okay, well, okay, maybe IVF. And then luckily having a colleague who had recently gone through egg retrieval and frozen her eggs, and knowing that
Mhm.
our company did cover fertility treatments, which
Mhm.
was a blessing in itself, is that okay, I'm with a company. And 10 years ago, it was really unheard of that you would have
Correct.
a company
Yeah.
who would cover fertility treatment. So I just went into it like thinking, well, okay, this will work. I can just do IVF. It's just going to be that simple. And and during that time, remember like looking for stories like mine, like
Mhm.
uh, where are they? Especially, there was before Facebook groups and TikTok and the communities. So it was a very lonely time, especially for women of color. Like, we don't really talk about fertility. And 10 years ago, we've come a long way. I will say that in like conversation and community. But 10 years ago, those conversations weren't happening. So it's
Right.
a very isolating place to be in. And then starting IVF and going through that, and then thinking that, oh, it's just going to be simple. And it was not. Nothing was simple about that process. I went with the reproductive endocrinologist that was referred from the colleague, and very knowledgeable, brilliant woman. It was almost like I just really rushed to make the choice, because time is of the essence when you're 38,
Yeah.
39, and it's like, okay, your eggs aren't you won't have any more eggs, they're depleting, and you got to go through this. Let's move fast. And I remember going through the IVF process and the hormones and feeling like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, I don't know if this is for me, but still
Oh my
pushing
goodness.
through and going through the process, and egg retrieval,
Mm.
and no embryos made it to blast.
Oh my
And
goodness.
getting that call I remember being in the parking garage again at work, and getting the call from not my doctor, but a nurse, a male nurse, and saying, well, we thought we would have had one of the embryos make it past day 3, but it didn't. It died off yesterday. And that yesterday ended up being my first wedding
Oh
anniversary.
my goodness.
So I was sobbing again. I remember calling my husband from the parking garage. I was like, I never want to do this again.
Oh
I
my
never
goodness.
want to do this again. And part of it, I think, was the emotion. And, after the appointments with the doctors and the follow up, it's like, well, do you, did the dust settle? Like, are you really not going to do this again? But in my gut, both he and I were like, I don't think we should do this again.
Mhm.
And we decided
Mhm.
not to proceed with IVF. And it was during that time that our RE said, well, are you just tied to like having a baby? Like, are you really compelled to like
Okay.
want
Okay.
to carry?
Okay. Here we
And
go.
then so she planted the seed in that, well, if you're not, have you ever considered adoption? Because of course they're talking all the things, donor embryos, donor eggs, donor sperm, all the things. Like, it's a plethora. It's like
Everything. Yes.
it's like the candy store. You can choose all the things. They
Mhm.
offer it. And I remember in that moment saying, I'm not completely tied to like carrying, and I am open. And my husband, he has family members who have been adopted, and we'd always talked about it. And
Mhm.
so the seed was planted then, um, during that time. So that's
Wow.
how that kind of IVF journey and that fertility
Mhm.
journey.
That story is breathtaking. And I'm sure there are people who are watching us on all of the platforms we're streaming live to, and they're nodding like I am, and they're saying, "Oh my," they're engaged in what you're sharing in part because there is connection. I will share that, I also had my children later in life. I was able to conceive, but I lost 2 pregnancies along the way. And I remember doing that journey being told all of these things about my age, my eggs, my uterus, my this, my that. And, feeling at some point like, well, wait a minute, a doctor would look at me in the face and say, well, I know that you lost this pregnancy, but it could be worse. And I would think to myself, really?
What
Okay,
was
so time to switch doctors. I don't know how much
Yeah,
worse it'd be, right?
yeah.
But I know that searching for what you hoped that you had, what you wish that you had during that time frame. And so that's why it's exciting to me not only to hear you share your story so openly, so honestly. I know it's in part because it's part of your professional background that you are a marketing strategist. You have all this wonderful professional background, but you are sharing something that is really life changing, and it is a part of building a community that is so needed. I'm wondering what it was like for you. I hear you say, what you shared is that this seed was planted by someone, that there was an alternative, right, to having your own child, to bearing a child in the traditional sense. And so when you started to think about non-traditional families, a different way of creating family, what was that journey like for you? Switching from one way of thinking about what your family might look like and how it might come to be, to a new road, a new journey.
If I'm honest, I never stopped. We never paused.
Mhm,
So we left from IVF to then making the decision to go into the adoption process.
mhm,
And I always like to acknowledge the privilege in that is that we were able to both afford IVF and then
mhm.
also be able to afford to go the direction of private adoption. And
Yes.
it's privilege in that. It's that we did explore foster to adopt. I did know in all my being that I couldn't foster because you go into the foster agreement, you're helping a family, you're going to take this child knowing that it's only temporary and you will take care until the parent is able to parent. So I knew we couldn't. I was not I know myself enough
Wasn't
to
the
know
road.
that that
You
wasn't
knew
the
that
direction.
wasn't the road. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I will say with adoption, honestly, my son is my son. Like I know and I trust God and believe that he
Yes.
was my son before I could even think of conception or adoption or what that looked
Mhm.
like. So I had to go through those things of like there is the rejection, there's the redirection to be able to get to him. So try the shift. I will say I honestly didn't give myself enough time to like process the in between because again, it's like you're moving. For me, it was like I'm moving from the IVF process to the adoption process,
Mhm.
and I will say that it was never a plan B. It's like in my whole heart, I knew that we wanted to pursue this, and it was still a lengthy process. Like you have home studies, and you have to go through the match process, and you have to go through some matches, not coming to fruition, and there was its own journey and then cycle of rejection and changes there. But I will say when we met our son's birth mom, it was just like kismet. It was
Oh
God
my
sent. It
goodness.
was
Oh my goodness.
beautiful. We left the hospital with him and it's was the most beautiful covering for
Mhm.
our family. So I the when I say the thinking of the IVF process or the infertility diagnosis to then getting to our son, it was really maybe a year and a half. Like things moved quickly. So I was just, were on our toes. I was moving fast and I honestly didn't have time to process much. I didn't.
Wow.
Things were just moving. I opened one door and things were happening. So the
Wow.
processing didn't come until after.
And so that swift move, that immediate sort of almost like a just a wave that said, "This is it. This is the direction." I really believe that when that happens, that is nothing but the Holy Spirit. That is a God move.
Yeah.
Um, Even though I want to hear about sort of the faith journey connected to this for you, because for many of us, our faith is shaken in the midst of this. We question ourselves, we question our faith, we question our purpose. I want to hear a bit about that part of this journey for you, because that's so central to what I think many of us struggle with in the midst of this kind of journey.
I honestly, I don't know that I really learned faith until this journey.
Ooh-wee,
Um, I
ooh-wee.
grew
Say
up
that
in
again.
church.
Can't you say it
I
again?
grew
Say it again.
until you're in this journey,
Woo!
and then I will say that I grew up in my parents were very protective. They provided. Life was great. Things worked out. I met my husband. All things kind of came together, and it wasn't
Mm.
until I felt that my body said no, and I had to deal with that rejection that I had to like center in faith
Oh
because
my,
what
my,
else am I
my.
going to believe
Mm.
if things aren't happening. I'm hearing these no's. I can't trust my body. I honestly don't have faith in my body because it's not producing what I need. So where else would I go to trust? And I have a praying mama. I had a praying, my mom passed
Amen.
last year, but my mom is still with me and I feel her presence in all things that I do. And I had
Yeah.
a praying mama, got a praying mother-in-law. I got praying aunties and
Right now.
uncles and friends and the covering. So we were a praying group and we were all in this together. So when I say community, family
Mhm.
community,
Mhm.
faith community, but my faith wasn't truly tested until I went through that process. And then having gone through that and come out of that, and then realizing that during that time, I was also battling, or we were trying to figure out why my liver enzymes were highly elevated.
Mhm.
So I was with a hepatologist trying to figure that out through the whole IVF process and trying to conceive and doing tests and biopsies and all those things. And it wasn't until a few years ago during an intake with a new primary care physician that she said, "Do you know not getting pregnant might have saved your life?"
Oh my goodness.
And I
Oh
was
my
like,
goodness.
"What is that? What?"
Right.
And
What
she
does that
said,
mean? Wait a
she's
minute.
like, "Well, when you were going through IVF, your liver enzymes were 10 times the normal level,
My
and there
goodness.
was no diagnosis at that time. So when we're monitoring pregnant women, we're looking at liver enzyme elevation. It's a natural thing that occurs. So you going into a pregnancy with an elevation at that level could have put your life and the baby's life at risk." So it really
Um,
wasn't until that moment, and I had started my own healing journey. Like
mhm.
my son was 4 or 5 years old at the time, and like settled in that God was protecting me the entire time.
That
And
covering.
I didn't realize that in the moment when I was pushing through and questioning why my body wouldn't do what I wanted it to do, but God was protecting me the entire time.
That protection, that level of covering and protection, and the revelation of that after, long after you were through that portion of the journey, that is incredible. And so, I wanna tell you right now, even now, and as I read your story, I'm even now praying for your continued health, and your journey. I know how important this is. And so, talk to me a little bit and talk to our listeners and our watchers tonight about what you have to share in terms of encouragement for those who may not be as far along in their journey as you are, who may have that unexpected answer, that twist in the plot, and who don't understand that, as we're talking about tonight, the fruit still comes.
So when I think of fruit,
Mhm,
I think of more than just what we will bear. And when I was in the journey, and when I think with if I had to think about the word fruit, I would think about, okay, pregnancy, delivering a
mhm,
child, like the fruit, the actual handheld fruit. But what I
mhm.
realized is that fruit can come in growth. Fruit can
Amen.
come in building faith. Fruit can come in just becoming stronger and your own growth, your own journey. So I would, if I had to, and I always like to say when I'm speaking to like women who are like in the trenches or going through the process, newly diagnosed, I think back to what I needed to hear.
Yeah,
And it's almost for me like all things work together for your good.
yes,
Like
they
even when
do.
you don't believe that it's working for your good, there's likely something happening in the background, and even outside of fertility. When I think about jobs or
Mhm,
protection, my
mhm.
own health, like finding a care team that has worked for me, and the
Yeah,
diagnosis that came and the treatments that came, and that I'm still here and I'm healthy. um all things work together for good. And I mean, it
mhm.
may sound cliche, and when you're in it you may not be able to trust that.
Right,
But in addition to like believing that, trusting your body and your gut and
that's
your
it.
intuition, because those little God winks, those nudges,
Those
like
are
it's a reason I didn't continue IVF. It was my gut, it was my intuition, but that was God telling me, like, okay, no. pause here. And
Yes.
had I continued IVF, maybe would have conceived, maybe would have had a baby. We maybe
Right.
would have had the embryos and the baby, but I wouldn't have my son
That's
now.
right. That's
So
right.
it's the trusting both yourself and God.
Mhm.
And it's difficult. I won't sit here and say that it's not tough. Even
Yes.
still
Yes.
now, trusting.
Even so, and so I think for some, we struggle at times with whether the circle of people around us are supportive of all of these different new opportunities and choices we might have to make if our bodies don't do what people expect, right? I can recall until, because I had my daughter, I have two children, and I had my daughter when I was 40. But I remember the years of questions. So when are you going to, how long? Ooh, are you ever going to, all of those questions at every event, at every gathering, at every dinner, at every church, there were all of these questions, and it felt uncomfortable. It felt like there was something missing. And so I'm wondering also if you have a word about that experience, that set of feelings for those who may be experiencing that right now in this moment.
Um, I would suggest finding community
Mhm,
because oftentimes
mhm.
we people say things and they love us. They want to protect us. They want to help fix things. There were tons of comments and questions and, oh, when you have a baby, oh, your baby will be so beautiful, oh, it's going to have your lips and your husband's eyes and all the things, and not knowing like what's happening in the background. But people love you and they mean well.
Mhm.
So it's for me, it's like find a community of people who can you can connect with, whether that's one-on-one, whether it's a group like you guys, with Bearing
Mhm.
Fruit. And there's so many communities now. I i was isolated in that. There were no communities then, so
Yeah,
there were no words of
yeah,
just
support,
encouragement.
and then yes,
So I
yes,
just had to lean into my word and then try to connect. And I did have a large friend group who supported me. My family supported me. My mother, my parents, my mother-in-law all supported me and loved me. And then I have a husband who is extremely supportive, and he always made it very clear that I chose you. I didn't choose what you could give me. And if it's just us two, then we will travel and we will be auntie, uncle, and we will pour into the community. And like we still do now with baseball teams and kids and
yes,
all
yes.
the things. But I've been very fortunate in that. But even in those moments, people may not, everyone didn't understand what I was going through. I
Mm.
had my best friend tell me recently, you're doing all this work and I never knew you felt that way.
Wow.
And I never knew you felt that way.
Oh
So
my
just talk
goodness.
to your friend group. Like just say I need a drink.
Yeah.
Let's be quiet. Let's eat popcorn. But I even had friends who, if my husband had when I was going through IVF and I was like doing the shots at this point, and my friends came over and they're like, okay, Derek's traveling, he has a game. I'm gonna give you your shot.
Right.
And one was like kind of shaky hands, and the other one's like, girl, bend over. Boop. So it's
Ooh,
like
those friends, we
find
need
those
that circle.
friends, yeah,
Huh?
and they
Oh,
just want to be included too. So if you have those loved ones and those friends, just let them love on you and wrap their arms around you.
oh my goodness. That is so encouraging and right on point. I agree wholeheartedly. I want to ask you a bit more though about this transition. So you went through your journey and then you became this incredible advocate. I mean, you first of all, I would just want to say everybody's social media isn't as beautiful as yours. It's fantastic, but also it's beyond that. I see this powerful message, this incredible work and clear dedication. How did that transition happen? Because that's hugely important. So many of us go through something and it stops with us.
Mhm.
You've chosen to take that out to others. And so what was that transition like?
So it the fact that you use the word transition. So my mother transitioned
Mm,
last year in
yes,
February,
yeah.
and I had always promised her, let me not cry,
Oh my goodness. Oh my,
that I would tell my story. So I owe her that,
yes.
and that is why.
Oh my goodness. Ooh, Angie, don't do that. Wait, we're
Don't
not
you
doing
do
that to
this
the,
to me because
okay,
I
wait,
got somewhere to cry.
hold on.
So
Okay. Yeah.
last things,
Mm,
part of my journey has been just showing up, and I open the doors and people come and they come to hear me and they talk back, and I just keep talking to the person that I needed to hear from 10 years ago.
and,
And I still
and
feel like my mom is like right here saying, just keep talking.
yes. Look, let me tell you that that is in part the reason I think I always longed to be a mother
Mm.
because of the mother I have. And I think that that level of depth of encouragement that you received is so powerful. The people in our lives who encourage us, who lift us, who see in us what we might not even see ourselves. And then, in essence, birth ministry, birth work to go into the world, birth that confidence
Yeah,
and the beauty of that on what are some very, very difficult things to talk about. And
right.
private and personal. And so, for anyone who might be considering the kind of work that you were doing, anyone who wants to be that advocate, that warrior for infertility, what might they do, and what resources are there out there for them to consider turning their own journey and their own experience into something that encourages others the way you've done?
So healing comes in community. So
Mhm,
if we're not talking about things, no one you're going to feel isolated. So oftentimes if we're in just a group of women talking,
mhm,
I'm if it comes up, my birth story is different. And there's still oftentimes that I'm triggered or I feel alone and I feel that I won't say that my story is invalid, but I can't relate to the birthing or the conception and the delivery that some women have. But I still tell my story because our stories are universal. So there's typically always at least two women in the group. Either they've experienced loss or they're struggling now, or they know someone and they're like, would you share your story with my friend? This happened to my neighbor. This happened to me. This is my story. I've lost. I've wanted more kids. So it became just the conversations of talking, and it's been healing for me too.
yeah,
So I truly feel like I've been called to this work to
yes,
advocate not just for for us to just talk about it, but like what does coverage look like? Like what does it look like in my state? Like I had privilege to try. What does it look like for the woman who doesn't have access? Their company doesn't offer
mhm,
infertility treatments. They can't
mhm,
afford to adopt. Like what does that look like? And it should be fair for all. So it's a calling for me to push in those areas as well,
and
but healing is in community, and I truly believe that the more we talk about this, the less taboo it is, the more conversations we can have. I remember talking to my mom about it and she's like, yeah, we used to say it's the barren woman. Like that was the term they used
it was,
then.
that's
No
right.
one talked about it. So when I was going through it 10 years ago, I just felt like a barren woman and
Amen.
I
That's
had no
it.
one to talk about it
Oh
with.
my goodness. Yeah.
So
Even the term, you're right. Even in this day, the terminologies have changed, right? We've changed our words because we realize that there are so many more of us. Have you ever, entered into a room of people maybe that you didn't even know, and over time, as you get to know them, you find there are stories in the room.
always stories in the room.
There are
Always
stories
stories.
in the room, and I think that that is the thing. The isolation happens because so often we think it's just me, right? This happened to me.
Me.
Um, and we allow ourselves to think that there's no one else that shares that. And so that is one of the things we are very excited to do as part of Barren Fruit. I'm so glad that you've been willing to share what you have gone through and your experience. Are there things that you have coming up in your work, or things that have happened recently that you want to share? I know of at least a couple of things. Wasn't there a resolution, right? There's some
Yeah,
resolutions
so
that
the
happened.
city of South Fulton, yeah, they sent over a proclamation for the week for recognizing National Infertility Awareness Week. So speaking out more around that, just around Georgia, what that looks like for us and beyond a week. It's more than just a week.
Right.
Next week, I'm traveling to Las Vegas for Women's Wellness Summit that I'm working with a great group of wellness women with in Las Vegas, and I'll be co-facilitating a session there live with a clinical social worker who's a perinatal. She specializes in perinatal mental health, so she and I will co-facilitate. So I'll be speaking on from the lived experience, and she'll be talking all things clinical. So I'm very excited about that and doing more with the city of South Fulton around the community and sharing this word. And I'll be on socials, and the door is open. Like I'm open to it, and I'm just walking through in what I feel like is my calling, and truly excited about it.
And so how do people get in contact with you? Because I know that there are people watching right now that are like, I need Angie to come speak. I need her to come to our conference. I need her to speak to our women at our church. I need so how do they get in touch with you and book you? Because I'm all about supporting women in business as well. I'm an entrepreneur, and I believe in supporting other women entrepreneurs. So tell it. This is the time.
So they can find me on Instagram at Angie L. Booker. So DMs are open. Same thing, Angie L. Booker at Gmail for email. I play around on TikTok just a little. I hang out there, check it out. So I am there. I am there as well. But definitely looking forward to connecting and staying in community with this group of women, and always reaching back for what I needed from when I was needing a word 10 years ago. So just continuing on that mission.
Angie, thank you so much. Your story is powerful. You are a fantastic advocate. This week is all about, the national work and the international work of empowering those in this world of infertility, of reproductive health. And we see this as connected to, infant mortality, women and infant mortality. All of this is connected. Our health is on the line. We see
literally,
that
my health was on the line.
Amen.
It was. So I know. Yeah.
Our health is on the line. Your health journey intersected with your journey towards motherhood, and so many people again need to hear this and need to know you and get to know you. So follow Angie on all of her social media. Please, try to continue to know that you have people here as a part of Bearing Fruit. I know you're based in Atlanta. I'm in Ohio. Our founder and many of our other members are in Philadelphia. So we're all over the place. We're a growing movement, and we are really excited to have met you and given you a platform and an opportunity to share your story. I'm going to keep following you. I hope to get the chance
to
you too.
Yes, hopefully we can meet in person someday.
Yes, I hope so. So I'm going to share just a little bit before we end that we do have some other things coming up this week as a part of our Empowerment Week. And so we have tomorrow, we have one more evening speaker at 7:00, Dr. Kenita Rutley, and she's going to be talking on the theme of fruit after the fight. We do have our Bloom in Motion event that's on Saturday. It's sold out. It is sold out. Hooray! I know this. I'm going to tell you, that's exciting news. That is exciting news. We have worked really hard. Our founder, Deanna, has worked very hard on putting this together. And so that event is sold out. However, folks can meet at the final stop, which is going to happen at a location called Dig in Philadelphia at 12:45 on Saturday to help celebrate the sort of closeout of the week. And they can also, if they go to Dig anytime that day on the 25th, they can get 30% off. Actually, 30% of all the proceeds go to Bearing Fruit. So we're fundraising at that event too. So they didn't get their tickets because the event got sold out. Hot diggity. But they want to come and support anyway. Join at Dig. That's right on at 1616 Chestnut Street in Philly. So we hope folks will come to that. Just mention either Bearing Fruit or say Dig fundraiser, and that 30% of anything people purchase that day will help support this organization. This is our 8th annual Empowerment Week. We have worked very hard over the last 4 to 5 years to turn what was a dream and a ministry and a work of the heart for Diana into a living, breathing nonprofit organization. We need everybody's support. This
Yeah.
work cannot end. There are many nonprofits in the current climate that are endangered. We hope that you understand that every single time you support any event, that people log in and watch these lives that we're doing, it all matters. The work of this week extends all year long. And so thank you for being this incredible empowerment warrior in infertility and in this space. Thank you for your voice and your courage and for your faith and for considering that there could still be fruit. There
Sure.
could still be fruit.
Mhm. Thank you
And
for
you're
having me.
clearly being fruitful in the world. So thank you for that. Thanks everybody for having tuned in tonight. We're so excited that you have. Keep tuning in. Again, we have another one of these wonderful conversations tomorrow, and we welcome people to join our upcoming events. We also have, what we don't want you to forget is we have our upcoming event in June that is also coming up. Our Be Fruitful conference is coming. Early bird prices are extended through Saturday, but you need to join us in June for our Be Fruitful conference. We'll hope to see everyone there. Thank you again for all who've tuned in. Angie, thank you so much for your openness and sharing your story tonight. And I hope to see you and talk with you again.
Thank you for having me.
Take care, everyone. Please visit barrenfruit.org for more information about our upcoming events and about the organization. Take care. Good night.
Good night.